All right. So here's what we're going to look at tonight. I'll tell you a little bit about forecast, and then we'll go through some definitions about public art. We'll talk about eligibility for both people and projects. We will also we'll go through the grant application so you can see what all the questions are. I'll give you some tips on how to fill in your application, and then we'll talk about some resources that are available to you. So, Forecast, if you're not familiar with us, we started in 1978 by artists who were interested in working in public spaces more. And they sort of worked project by project and then started to gain a bunch of knowledge. And the nonprofit has grown and we offer a bunch of different services now. But we do three main things. The first is that we support artists who work in public. And our grant program that we're talking about tonight is one of the things that we do for funding and training artists. We also have a program called Making It Public, which is a workshop for artists who are sort of new to public art and want to just understand how they might change their private practice into a public one. The second thing we do is help folks find artists. We get phone calls all the time from people who say, I need an artist for this project. I don't know how to find one. Can you help me? We also work on public art master plans and arts and culture master plans, and we do a lot of creative community engagement. And then finally, we publish something called Forward. It's a free publication on our website. This is a way for us to tell stories around how artists are affecting change in our country across sectors. Again, it's free, it's on our website. Each one is around a different topic. I just want to take one moment and say a huge thank you to McKnight and Jerome Foundations as they are the funders of these grants. We would not be able to do them without Jerome and McKnight, so thanks to them. Okay, let's define public art. We like to think about public art very broadly. We think about it as something that is publicly accessible, whether it's on public or privately owned land, or whether it is funded with public or private money. Sometimes this doesn't mean that you can actually touch the artwork, like a billboard, right? That could be public art, as long as there's some sort of access to it. So that would be visual access to that billboard. Public art can take many forms. Artists and culture bearers who are working across disciplines and media are encouraged to apply. Um, your idea might turn into an installation. You might be thinking about a performance. You might be thinking about a gathering or a community meal. You might be thinking about a mural or some sound work or creating a festival or some sort of temporary experience or something that we haven't even seen yet. So again, we like to define public art very broadly. Generally, as far as eligibility goes, you do have to be based within the geopolitical boundaries of the state of Minnesota and the 11 Native nations that share the same geography. You have had to have lived in that geography for 12 of the past 24 months, and you need to remain a resident during the grant period, which is January through November. Students, unfortunately, are not eligible. Either are organizations. This is for individual artists or teams, collaborative teams. It's not for an organization to get money to do a project. Whatever you build, if you get a project grant, has to be freely accessible. You can't charge any entrance fees. You don't have to ask for tickets, anything like that. It just has to be freely accessible for people to be able to enjoy. It has to be a new work. It can't be something that you've done before and you are reinstalling. And it cannot be a commission. So it has to be something that you, as the artist, have thought of and initiated and want to develop through the grant. It can't be that, like, I was called to do this mural and we're trying to find funding for it. That would not qualify. You can also apply for only one grant per year. We do have two different grants for mid-career artists and two for early career artists, but you can only apply for one grant each year. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and that means that we cannot fund projects that support a political candidate. We can't support projects that are religious in nature. We cannot support projects that include pornography, and we cannot support projects that will cause harm to others or are illegal activities. So grants are open now. Again, we've got four different grants. Two are for mid-career and two are for early career. For mid-career, we have a project grant. We give 5 grants of $10,000 for projects, and then we give 2 grants of $5,000 each for professional development activities. We have two $8,000 grants for early career projects, and then we've got 4 grants of $2,500 each for research and development for early career artists, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, what that means. But it can be hard to understand if you are early career or mid-career. Because Jerome is one of our funders, we utilize their definition of early career artist. Um, you can read these bullet points here, but generally speaking, if you have been working in the arts in a generative way for 10 years or under, you are probably early career. We look at your entire career, not just like I was a painter and now I'm going to do sculpture. Let's just count my sculpture. We would have to count your painting time in that as well. Um, an early career artist usually hasn't gotten tons of recognition, but you are moving in a direction where this is going to be continue to be generative for you. You maybe haven't gotten many awards or anything like that, but you are again moving this into a career, not just doing it as a hobby or as an amateur. Age is not a determining factor in your career status, whether you're early or mid-career. You can be in your 70s and be an early career artist. So then what's a mid-career artist? These are folks who have been actively creating and exhibiting work for at least 10 years. So if you've been practicing artwork of any kind for 10 years or more, you are very likely in the mid-career category. You have gotten some sort of recognition for your work. You've got a larger body of work. You've probably done some exhibitions that are maybe not in Minnesota. Um, you probably have done some public presentations or something like that. You've done a bunch of shows for yourself. Again, age is not a determining factor. Um, and again, an artist shifting from one discipline to another will still be considered mid-career, right? So a composer with a substantial career in music who's now moving into sculpture would be considered mid-career. This is one of the questions that I get most often. People have very specific situations. So if you are not sure, please reach out to me and we will figure out together if you should apply for an early career or a mid-career grant. Okay, let's talk about the mid-career grants. Again, we have 5 grants of $10,000 for projects. These can be temporary or permanent. They can be located anywhere in the state of Minnesota. Again, this cannot be a commission. It has to be something of your own initiation. For the project grants, you must have the project site secured by the application deadline. And this is just like a written permission that the person who owns the site says you can do this. So it could be that you are working with a nonprofit and you want to do performance in front of their building, and they wrote you an email and said, we would love you to do this performance next to our building. Just PDF that email and upload it to your application. If you are going to do a project in a local park, I know in St. Paul, all you have to do is like write an application and then they give you a permit. You may not know when you're going to actually do your event when you're applying. So all you would have to do in that situation is upload the application that's blank and just say, I'll be filling this out when it's time for me to do the project. Um, Again, 5 people will get this grant. There's $10,000 each. Your projects can be supported by other, agencies or in-kind sources or anything like that. But again, it cannot be funded by any sort of private commission. This grant requires a project to be installed or performed or completed during the grant period of January to November 2027. One of our current grantees is Julianne Shibata. She's working on something called Taking Shape, which is a collaborative large-scale ceramic public art installation planned in conjunction with the Japan America Society of Minnesota for the 2026 Oban Festival at Como Park Zoo and Conservatory. Julianne hosted workshops for members of JASM and friends to create hundreds of floral-shaped pieces to display in the Ordway Gardens. So the project represents multiple voices, will encourage viewers to participate by touching and moving the installation components. Our other mid-career project grantee this year is Tammy Isfeld. She worked on something called River of Western Spirit. It was a community mosaic that's a tribute to Granite Falls's Western Fest and their Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association heritage. So Tammy designed and guided community members, but the community members then were able to create tiles and build the mural with her, so that they have some sort of ownership over it as well. So those are our mid-career project grants. We have two grants of $5,000 also for mid-career artists who are looking at furthering their professional development. So rather than funding a project itself, this grant funding can be used to support the development of a project idea or for you to participate in activities that will help you further your career as a public artist. So those can range from residencies to apprenticeships. You may want to use this money to travel to a conference or travel somewhere else and do research. You might want to pay yourself to study a certain subject or learn new skills. Um, you might just want to create some project models or prototypes or test something out. The idea is that the overall outcome is to advance your public art career. Again, the key point here is that you're proposing something that's going to advance your public art career further. Cecilia Cornejo worked on a project. Well, she didn't work on a project because she got a professional development grant, but her proposal was to deepen her commitment to public art that's community driven and informed. So she actually traveled to Chile, which is her home country, and she studied with a group called Memorarte, which is a women-led collective of embroiderers who create pieces that promote and defend the rights of humans and nature. So she was able to spend money to be able to go and learn from this group of people. And then she was also able to to connect with individuals in the area so that she could be part of an artist residency in Chile as well. Oh, early career, oh, sorry. Okay, early career project grants. We have two of these that we give out. Each one is $8,000. Again, these projects can be temporary or permanent. They can be located anywhere in the geopolitical boundaries of the state of Minnesota and the Native nations that share the same geography. Again, like the mid-career project grant, you do have to have your site secured by the application deadline. If you have questions about any of that, please just let me know. Shoot me an email and we can talk through your situation and figure things out together. Again, projects can be supported by other funding or in-kind sources, but again, private commissions are not eligible. Needs to be a project of your own initiation. And that project needs to be installed or performed or completed during the grant period of January through November. One of our recent early career project grantees worked on creating mosaic tiles in gaps in the sidewalk in Chisholm, Minnesota. And she talked about this as a way to restore the community because people weren't coming downtown. And so she was able to try and be the change within her community that she wants to be rather than complain that something is wrong. And I just realized that all three of these project examples so far feel like they are mosaic making. You do not have to be a mosaic maker to get a project grant. Early career research and development grants, we give four of these out. Each one is $2,500. This grant supports early career artists in public art related research and development, or with the planning phase of a public art installation or activity in Minnesota. You could use this for research. You could use it for planning. You could host community dialogues. You might need to figure out how to develop your budget, or, figure out what you might need to do as far as your site goes. How do you get it ready? You might want to build a model. Research and development grants may be used for the development of proposals for other public or nonprofit agencies, but you can't use the funding to help you do a private commission, if that makes sense. I want to be very clear here. You do not have to do a project if you get a research and development grant. You do not have to you do not have to do a project. You can use that money to pay yourself to study, or you can use that money to pay for a class that you want to take. Same with the mid-career professional development grant. You do not have to do a project. It's all about advancing your public art career further. It's hard to take photos of, of a research and development project, but these are our current grantees who got research and development grants. Um, I'll just read a couple of them. So on the top left is Drew Arietta. He's working on something called Dream Machines. Dream Machines creates a living archive of the futures that we dream. Through a dedicated hotline and public pop-up stations, people can anonymously record their visions while hearing those already shared. This research and development grants is supporting the developing and testing of the hotline and pop-up station. Drew is gathering community input to explore how public art can transform everyday spaces into platforms for connection, imagination, and collective dreaming. On the top right, this is Jess Bergman. She is using the grant to develop technique and samples for future community engaged large-scale enamel and cast metal public art projects. So activities for this would include development of a sample body of work that incorporates processes of large-scale glass enamel and cast metal elements. She's really figuring out how to do this in a larger scale, and she's using the grant period to be able to do that research and development. Let's talk about the selection criteria and the selection process. I want to make the selection process as transparent as possible. Um, the selection criteria on the screen here, each one of these is actually related directly to a question in the application. So you will be scored basically on that question for that selection criteria. We hire an outside jury. No one at Forecast makes any decisions about who receives funding. We generally have a panel of three jurors. One is usually local, one is regional, and one is national. And these are folks who are administrators, they're artists themselves, they are researchers, they are all folks who are in the public art ecosystem in some way. The jurors score the applications in each of these criteria areas. They have discussions, they rescore, and then they make decisions together. Panel processes are not open to the public, but you can request feedback on your grant application after you're notified of the jury's decisions. So again, the jury is going to be looking at each one of these. Quality and clarity of proposal. This is really the strength of your proposed idea. You have really clear consideration of the scope of work that you are proposing, and you as the applicant are able to see through what you are proposing. So you can actually do the thing that you are putting in your application. In this question, you'll want to talk about what you want to use the grant money for, how you're going to use it, what activities you'll be involved in, or what kind of tasks you're going to do. You can talk about what kind of research you're going to do, any partnerships that you need to make. This is really about the things you need to do to implement the idea with which you're applying for this grant. And just a tip here, a timeline of activities in this question is always super helpful for the jury so they can see what you are doing when. The second criteria is value of the project to the artist's development. This is really about, again, new growth for you, right? The opportunity is oriented toward expanding your career in the field of public art. You're not just doing something that you've already done before. There's something that's a little new that's going to continue to push you forward in your public art career. Benefit to the community. This one really is about how you define community. That could be geographical. It could be something like my neighborhood. It could be professional, like other artists, something like that. But what part of you connects to the community in which you're making the project? And how does your work benefit that community? So like if you get this grant, how is the community that you are defining going to benefit from you getting the grant? As an example, my application is to investigate how to scale my hand embroidery work into larger scale weavings on fences. I define my community as other fiber artists, and what I learned through this grant will be shared back with my fiber community so they can also scale their work if they are interested. So that's an example of how you could define a community and how they might benefit. And then quality of work samples. So this relates both to the quality of the work that you shared as well as the quality of the work samples, right? If you send in a blurry photo, it's very hard for the jury to be able to understand what what it is that is in the photo and that you're trying to show. So make sure that you are including examples of projects or work samples of things that relate to what you're writing in your proposal. So for example, let's say that you are going to do some community engagement and then you are going to create a pop-up temporary experience that people can walk through along Central Avenue in Northeast, let's say. You haven't necessarily done a pop-up before, but you have done community engagement before. So include a work sample of you doing community engagement. In the work sample section, you can also include notes, and we'll look at the application together. But you could put in those notes that this is an example of how I've done community engagement before. This is how I will approach it in my project if I receive a grant. Okay, let's take a look at the application. It's just forecastpublicart.submittable.com. That will take you to this page, and then you'll see all 4 of the grants listed here. If you click on guidelines, it just gives you some more information about, what this grant is and when the deadlines are, that sort of thing. If you click on submit, it will take you to the application form. So we're going to ask you for, your contact information. If you are applying as a team, we ask that you include the names of your team members there as well. We'd like to know how you heard about this grant. If you are not into writing and you would rather submit a video application, you can absolutely do that. Just type NA into all of the required fields and then upload your video here. Just make sure that you answer all of the questions that are in the application form, and you will still have to upload your resume, your budget, your site permission, and work samples. If you do want to do a video, an easy way to do it is just record yourself on Zoom or something like that, and then upload it here. We're going to ask you for the project title. We'll ask you for a short description of the project, and then we'll ask you for a longer description of the project. This project proposal section here is where I suggest you include the timeline of activities that you're going to be doing during the grant period. So what's your project? What topic are you addressing? What are the tasks and things that you need to do to be able to do this project from January to November? Who are you talking with and collaborating with? What does that look like? So this is where you're going to tell us all the things that you're going to do if you get this grant. Then the benefit to the community, we've talked about this, right? How are you defining community? How are you getting this grant benefiting that community that you have defined? Diversity of lived experience and perspective. This is not something that is scored upon. This just helps us understand the sort of backgrounds of who is applying to our grants. And when I say backgrounds, I mean more like, are you a self-taught artist? How has your career sort of changed for you over the course of, being an artist? Is there something that you had to overcome in your life to be able to do the work that you are doing now? Maybe you grew up somewhere that is very different from where you live now, and that helped you and is going to be an inspiration for your project. Again, that one is not scored. It just helps us understand more about who is applying. And then this, if you're applying for a mid-career grant, it would say mid-career status and have the definition of mid-career down here. This is just a place for you to say, like, I have done several solo shows, but I don't have much recognition. I've been practicing for 4 years, and I'm working on getting a commission by the end of the year, something like that. Tell us how you feel that you are in early career status. And then this is the impact on your development or your career, right? How is you getting this grant going to push your public art career further? We'll ask you to upload your resume. If you don't have a formal resume and you just want to include a sheet that talks about like 10 things in your life that have influenced your artistic career, that's also okay. Not everybody has a formal resume. Again, we just want to understand what kinds of things you have done in your career. This helps us make sure that you are in the right career status application as well. Site permission, again, this is only for project grants. You just upload permission that says you can do this project that you're proposing here. Um, Again, it can be an email, it can be a formal letter. It just has to say that you can do the thing that you are saying you want to do. Project grants also require a budget. Research and development and professional development grants do not require you to submit a budget. Um, there is a template that is linked here that if you don't have a budget template for yourself, you can use this one. But we want to see that what you're proposing in your budget matches what you're proposing in the project field a couple, up here, right? What is your proposal? And is everything that you're saying in here reflected in your budget? Are you going to hire someone to do something specific for you? Make sure that's in your budget. Are you going to pay community members if they are part of your project? That should be in your budget. And then here's work samples. We can take images, we can take video, we can take audio samples, we can take written work samples. And you can see here just sort of how many of each you can upload. We ask early career artists to upload up to 5 images, and we ask mid-career artists to upload up to 10 images. And then demographic information is optional. You can fill it out if you would like to. You do not have to. That essentially is the application for each grant type. They all basically have the same questions in them. Let's talk a little bit about some grant writing tips, and then we can move into some question and answer. So the first one is about cohesion, right? This actually relates to the budget and the proposal tying together. You want to think about each question of the application as a piece of the larger puzzle, and that when they all come together, they create an entire story of what you would do during a grant period. So it's not just I'm going to do this and then here's the budget, right? Like we talked about, those two things have to come together and support each other. So all the different pieces that you're pulling together are really shaping the whole project that you are doing. Be specific yet flexible. This one's tough, but get really specific about what you are doing and how you are doing it, but leave some room for flexibility. So it's really okay for you to say, I know I'm going to do this thing. And from that activity, I'm going to learn more about what's going to influence the next phase of the project. I don't know that specific information yet because I'm going to learn it when I do it. But I do know that I need to do things in this order, right? So you're being specific about, I have to do this thing. I'm trying to learn this. I don't know exactly what I'm going to learn. So the next phase of the project isn't totally solid yet, but I won't be able to do that until I've done this first thing, right? I know the order in which I need to do things. Urgency is good. Why is this project important to you right now? And why is it urgent? And why are you the best person to do this project? Those are probably the key questions that you'd want to answer, or make sure comes through in your grant proposal. This is so important right now. I need to do it because of X, Y, and Z. That's helpful for the jury. And then finally, seek help. Have someone who's not an artist read your grant and tell you if it makes sense. I like to pass things by my mom because she always says, I have no clue what you do in your job. So if she reads it and it's clear to her, then I know I'm on a good path. Have someone read through it, do like a spell check and punctuation check, all of that. But none of those are going to disqualify your application. It just makes it easier for the jury to read if you go through and do the spell check and that sort of thing. Again, if you have misspelled words, you're not going to get disqualified. And then finally, we offer help. So you can sign up for a 30-minute feedback meeting with me if you'd like. Um, if you do want to do something like that, send me an email and then we can set up a 30-minute session. But in that session, I can review your grant draft proposal if you would like. We can talk about your career status. We could talk about the idea that you have and if it's actually eligible or what might make it eligible. So we can use that 30 minutes for whatever it is that you are interested in. If you're going to send us a copy of your proposal for us to review, we ask that you send it by the end of September and give us 3 days to be able to review it and get back to you with. There is more information on our artist support page, which you can see here. And then we do have videos from former grantees on Vimeo if it's helpful to watch and see what it is that they did and how they're talking about it so that you can fill in your grant application. Here is my email address. Please write this down, jenk@forecastpublicart.org. I'm here to help you. So please reach out if you have questions, and then we'll figure things out together.